All right, so what happened this week, man? What are we talking about?
We're talking about accessibility. This is something we actually been meaning to talk about for a while.
Yeah.
But of course, Apple, like they do each year before WWDC, they announce new accessibility features that are coming to iOS and coming to the Mac. And they recently did so. So I was thinking, like, well, number one, that's really cool because we get a preview of like some of the new features for iOS 19. Or actually, no.
No, we got to correct ourselves now.
Why do I need to correct myself?
iOS 26 or iOS 2026 or I don't know, man.
iOS 26. This episode of 9 to 5 Mac Overtime is sponsored by our friends at Bitwarden. Stay tuned. We'll talk more about them in just a bit.
Mm-hmm.
What's the deal, dude? Like, why? So I literally thought this was a joke when I first saw it.
Same.
I thought it was fake.
I thought it was like a meme. It's like, oh, Apple like innovated and they're skipping 7 iterations of iOS. That's what I saw first, and I was like, oh, this is a joke. Somebody's just like trolling, and then nope.
So why 26?
I mean, in theory, the explanation makes sense, which is to like match up with the year and to kind of like bring some universality across all the different OSs. Because right now we have different numbers for a bunch of different versions of watchOS, iOS, visionOS, macOS. But it's just the way that I guess they haven't said it yet. Yeah. So like I was gonna say like the way that they did it, but just how it's going to be done, where they're going from 18 to 26, just looks so weird. It looks clunky. It looks like not thought out. So I think it's just people are gonna be like, what's going on here?
Yeah. At first glance, I thought this was the dumbest thing ever. I'm like, why? And then it clicked. Like, it's like the car model year thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, you buy a new car now, it's going to be a 2025 model most likely. But if you buy one in September, it's probably going to be a 2026 model because they released the newer models a few months earlier. And that way, it's kind of nice. Like, when you buy a new car in August and it's like the next year, it's like, it seems newer for longer. I don't know how that works, and that's kind of the thing here. And like you mentioned, this has been one of my biggest pet peeves with the naming convention, like trying to remember. It gets easy to remember we're on iOS 18, right? It's easy to remember we're on iPad OS 18. But then when you start talking about the Mac and you start talking about watchOS and visionOS, then it really starts to get confusing. Like, it's easy to remember it's visionOS 2, but I always forget which watchOS we're on. I don't know why, but I can never remember.
That and macOS. I always forget that macOS isn't lined up with iOS.
Exactly.
So we're like on macOS 15.5. We're on watchOS 11.5. Even though we're on the Apple Watch Series 10, we're on watchOS 11. So
and then you mix in and then you mix in all the actual products like the iPad or the iPhone 16. Like, there's too many numbers going on. So I've long thought that something needs to be done about this, but I just didn't think that they would do this. But actually, the more I started thinking about it, the more it makes sense.
It definitely makes sense. Definitely, and like for all the people that maybe play sports video games, they take the same approach. You know, like I think in July or in August, Madden 26 comes out, even though we're in 2025. So like, it makes some sense because you do kind of feel like you're using the future product maybe. But again, like right now we have the iPhone 16 Pro Max running iOS 18.5. To the normal person, that sounds very confusing, you know? So it does make sense that we're going to be, and also I think there is speculation that we're dropping the numbers from the physical hardware too, to make it even easier.
Hope so.
Which I do hope so as well.
Yeah, like the iPhone 2026 running iOS 2026. Or you can have an iPhone 2026 running iOS 2030, right? Which is still like, you still have a little bit difference there, but it's a lot more straightforward. And it's very easy to kind of correlate that where you're at contextually in your mind. Whereas right now, there's no context to watchOS 11. Like, what does that even mean? You know, in context
100%.
with so it's just like, this makes a lot of sense, and I'm really happy that this is apparently going to be a thing. Obviously, it's not confirmed yet, but we've seen in some of the code and whatnot that this is probably going to be the thing when Apple.
The future naming, yeah.
Yeah. How? Now, here's my thing.
Yeah, go.
Well, how are they going to announce this?
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, what? How are they gonna sell this to us, or how are they gonna like physically show it?
Yeah.
You want to go first? You want me to go first?
I don't know, man. I don't know. What do you think they're going to say?
I think it's gonna be like they're gonna say it's like the latest iOS version. It's similar to how they do the current first gen iPad or the cheap iPad, where they put the iPad 11th gen in parentheses A16, or like iPad Mini 7 in parentheses A17 Pro. Like that's the formal title of these products. I think it's gonna be just iOS in parentheses 2026, iPad OS, and like the newest one, and they'll probably put like a little new emblem on the website or something like that. And I think that's how it's gonna be. It's just gonna be the latest or the newest version of whatever operating system.
Yeah. And one interesting thing about that is that Samsung has been doing this for a little bit already with their hardware. Like the Galaxy, what Galaxy S are we on? Are we on 26?
I think we're on 25 still. Galaxy, the 25 Edge just came out, remember?
Yeah. So that kind of
the reason that didn't seem so clunky is because they went from 10 to 20. And I think that's visually and like psychologically just I remember I was like, oh, what are they just trying to like catch up, or like I don't know what I thought but I was like, I didn't really care too much. A, because it's Samsung, we really cover much of it. But B, also it just went from 10 to 20, so like it wasn't that crazy, and it made sense that they wanted to match up the year. But going from 18 to 26 just looks so clunky.
Yeah. It's like, okay, you weren't old enough to drink, now you are. And you can rent a car now, okay? So
literally, yeah, you got to get off your parents' health insurance too,
So it's funny, but it makes sense. And knee-jerk reaction, mine was a little like, why? But now thinking about it, yeah, makes total sense. So that all being said, it was a long-winded way of saying Apple is releasing new accessibility features for iOS 2026. And they've outlined a lot of these. We'll talk about those. But first and foremost, I just kind of want to give Apple props for long being like
the king
the king at accessibility, and they've been doing it for like 4 decades now. I think they started a disability division back in 1985, I believe, and it's been like just going ever since. And that is one of the things that, as someone who doesn't, I mean, maybe my friends and family would disagree. I don't think I have any disabilities. I'm not trying to make light of that at all, but I mean, obviously my sight isn't the best. I wear glasses, and what I'm trying to say is the older you get, the more you start to become aware of your. Now, why is my camera doing that now?
I was gonna say the thing is just following you around.
It's just like, I think hasn't more. I must have clicked it.
Anyway. Or maybe when we started recording, it started following you.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it's like the older you get and the more you start to decline, and like vision and hearing and all sorts of different things. We were just talking about gray hairs earlier, but you start to become more cognizant of these features, right? If they start to become a little bit more important to you, even if you have all your faculties and you don't have any issues, you start to realize how much this stuff means. And I try to always kind of think about like, what would I be doing if I was blind? Like, how would if I lost my vision all of a sudden, which is, hopefully it doesn't happen, but I mean, things happen. You just never know. What would I do? And looking at like the amount of investment that Apple has put into accessibility really puts a new perspective on my, like, just the amount of respect that I have for them as a company in this area. Obviously, Apple has its own issues. You can argue about, some of its problems, but accessibility is definitely not one of them. They are definitely at the forefront of that, and they've set sort of the touchstone or the mark for accessibility features. And if you're someone who is visually impaired or hard of hearing, these things can be game changers in your life. And I just don't think that if you don't really need those things at this time, you don't really appreciate them.
Mm-hmm.
But I've grown to appreciate them, even though I don't technically need them now. I definitely appreciate them more and more.
Because I think at some point, whether we like it or not, we're going to need some help with these
We're going to at least need a magnifier, right?
At least, yeah. Like I noticed, because I've started to see, and like you said, the older we get, the more we notice these things. From an accessibility standpoint, I've noticed more and more people kind of adopting it. Yes, they're normally people that are a little bit older. Like I went to a wedding 3-4 weeks ago, and the bride's father was a little bit older. I think he was like 65, 66, and he had AirPods Pro on the whole time. And at first I was wondering why he had them in, but then I spoke to him for a little while. He was using the hearing aid feature because he was a little hard of hearing, right? And that's a recent addition to the accessibilities that we had. And he says that for his level of hearing loss, it's perfect. He doesn't have to go and get like a cochlear implant or anything like that. But he's got the headphones and he's good to go. And even something as simple as like larger fonts that my parents use, right? That's also when you want to extend the fonts even larger, that's an accessibility feature. And you just see it more and more as I start. Even I have some use cases for it just because it's in my day-to-day life, it does help out.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just a side point, I was in Costco the other day and they have like a section for like health and there was some hearing aids there. And the price of those things were like astronomical. I couldn't believe it. And I'm like oh, Apple is really going to easily. Yeah. I'm like, dude, this is a game changer. If you're like someone who needs some of this stuff, like the difference between a pair of AirPods Pro that you can find on sale sometimes for $200 and $1,000 hearing aid, and that's like probably the base model. Man,
yeah,
that's a huge thing. And I've used those hearing features; they're great. And it's just every year there's more and more and more accessibility stuff, and you would think like, what is the motivation for Apple to do this?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, yeah, it's baked into their DNA pretty much. And it's something that I think is super underappreciated. And it's something that I think, obviously, as time goes on, we're going to come to appreciate it more and more.
Yeah. But even, I feel like we all had that friend or that person that was, that had, especially when the iPhones had the home button, where they had like a shattered screen or a shattered home button or something, where they would use that accessibility feature where you could get the home button on the screen. The little like kind of translucent looking box. Even something as simple as that. It's not like an age thing. It's just instead of spending $1,000 on a new iPhone, let me really extend the life of this thing because I can't afford to replace my screen right now or something like that, or replace my home button. So even little things like that.
Or there's weird people that just like to have that on there. Even like I was never one of those. I never understood it. But like, yeah, there you have
people
those.
like it.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
To your point, great point though that you just made, accessibility features, because Apple thinks like this, the people who don't necessarily quote unquote need them, there's innovations that are made in that space that benefit us all. And that is one of those innovations. And there's tons of accessibility features that I think some of us use that we don't necessarily need them, but it just is more convenient for us. For instance, one, it's sort of built right in and it's activated from the jump, and that's reachability. Like that's an accessibility feature technically. It's found under the accessibility settings, and that's the thing that allows you to like swipe down on the home indicator and it moves all the content down. Which is really nice. So you can access
as a Pro Max user. Pro Max users, I use that a lot.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah. And then another cool one that I saw, which I hadn't seen, I know they've been doing it for a while. I was in an Uber with a friend, and he was on his phone, and he had those little motion sickness dots on the screen. And I was like, oh, because I knew about it. Because I remember when it first happened and they announced it or we reported on it. But I didn't use it because I don't really get motion sickness in the car. But I know like my brother definitely does. He used to throw up in the car all the time. Shout out my brother. But my friend, he had it on and he said that it works wonders. He's like, I don't really get motion sickness anymore. Like I don't get car sickness when I use my phone. He's like, I don't really understand how it works, but I just see these little, like, I barely see these dots moving around. It kind of just like goes away in the background, and he just starts to use his phone like normal in the car. And I thought that was really cool. You
I
know?
too get motion sickness when I can't sit there and use a phone while the car's in motion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which is a good thing. But
Yeah.
even if I'm like the passenger, like I can't do it, man. It just makes me, I don't know what it is. It makes me just nauseous. So
Yeah.
that is a great feature to have, and I definitely think that's just another example of the innovation. Like, who would have ever thought of something like that? But it's
Yeah,
clear
I don't
Apple
know.
has a dedicated team of accessibility the staff that is focused on this sort of thing, and just props to them, man, for continuing
sure.
to innovate. And I mean, there's many things that we could talk about, like
Yeah.
even the back tap feature. That's an
Yeah.
accessibility option.
That's a fun
Like
one.
people like that feature.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because they need it, but just because it opens up out
A little
just more
shortcut.
features.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of, are there any other cool ones that you can think of off the top of your head?
Oh,
Maybe ones that you've
there's
used in the
tons of them.
past?
Oh yeah. So here's one that I used to use a lot, and it was the ability to set the white point all the way down. So like you could have like you could use your phone in pitch black dark, and because when you turn the brightness down all the way, it's dim. But if you're in a pitch black dark, it's still pretty bright.
Yeah.
Well, there's a way to reduce the brightness even more by just turning down the white point, and then you could almost use your phone like, I mean, it was super dim. So there was a way to quickly
Yeah.
dim your phone even more. That's just one of them.
So
But-
I actually have that one mapped. So I replaced, the camera shortcut on your lock screen? I got rid of that and replaced it with the white point balance, like dimmer all the way to 0.
Really,
Because I use it that often. As
that's
somebody who
cool.
puts their kid to sleep and you need a pitch black room, but still kind of want to look at your phone.
Yeah, I mean,
So that's a
like
big one.
the accessibility section of iOS is amazing. Like, there's just
You can get
it's
lost
an
in there.
endless.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
no, you can literally get lost in here. There's just an endless thing, an endless list of different features. Like we could spend hours talking about all the various features there. So, again, I think I'm going to do a video, top 10 accessibility features or something like that. This week's episode of 9 to 5 Mac Overtime is sponsored by Bitwarden, the trusted solution for password, passkey, and secrets management. Bitwarden empowers individuals and businesses to take control of their digital security with tools that make managing strong, unique credentials simple across all your accounts and devices. Whether you're logging in on a desktop, in a web browser, iOS, Android, or even Apple Watch and Vision Pro, Bitwarden makes it seamless and easy. With features like enterprise SSO integration, end-to-end encryption, and secure autofill capabilities, Bitwarden helps protect you from phishing attacks and data breaches, no matter where you are. If you've ever abandoned logging into an account because you simply forgot the password, you're not alone. According to the Bitwarden World Password Day survey, over 55% of people say that they've done the same. And 60% of people report that managing a password is between somewhat and extremely stressful. The good news is that Bitwarden helps to solve that and eliminate that stress. They offer options like biometric unlock, secure password sharing, and the ability to create, manage, and autofill credentials, identities, and even payment info across your devices. It even supports password creation, passkeys, and secure sharing, all while maintaining zero-knowledge encryption. Check out the Bitwarden Password Manager by clicking the link down below in the description, or you can just visit bitwarden.com. Special thanks again to Bitwarden for sponsoring this episode of 9 to 5 Mac Overtime.
Because sometimes these accessibility features, they show up as accessibility features first, and then they end up being real features after
Yeah.
they've been used enough. Because I'm sure Apple has the data of like understanding who uses what, how often they use it. Because I remember when the 2018 iPad Pro came out, it was still running iOS 12, I remember. But you could connect, this is before iPadOS 13, but you could still connect a mouse. And I remember I wanted to try to use it. There's videos of me trying to do this. And the only way to really get a pointer mouse was through accessibility.
Yep.
So that's how I used it in the beginning to kind of start the whole I want to use my iPad as a computer thing. And then there's also like these hot zones that you could do on the iPad in the corners to kind of almost create shortcuts and different actions and gestures. So there's a lot that you can do, and people kind of, especially in the past, they used to kind of come at Apple because the OS wasn't customizable. The accessibility was the customization section of iOS, and people just weren't really aware of that because Apple doesn't really promote it or market it because that's not how they wanted to do it. Accessibility is for to allow as many people as possible to be able to use the devices, not as a marketing ploy to be like, oh, you can kind of play around and do this and mess with your OS and change up all these features. So if you want to go, definitely go into accessibility and play around in there and see what you can kind of customize and see.
Yeah, and like I said, like there's new things every year that they're building into here. I mean, it really, I think I might just start a series of accessibility, like because like there's extra external hardware that you can even use with accessibility to control your phone if you're visually impaired. I mean, it's just a wealth of different things, and I feel like I could literally just go down this list and break down every single feature, video by video, and explain the benefits of them. But Apple just needs more props for their accessibility, and I think like their stance on this has influenced other companies as well to adopt accessibility. Obviously not to the same degree, but I think they set the standard to be like, yeah, like there's people that use iOS probably just because it is accessible to them.
Yeah. 100%.
Whereas other OSs would not be so much accessible, but they definitely set the standard in this area for sure.
No, agreed. And then, I mean, I think that's a perfect segue into what we like. There are like Apple's already listed out the accessibility features coming to the new iOS, whatever we're gonna call it. And they're sick. They're very cool, and some of them are even like the Braille one, insane. Maybe we'll get to that in a second, but if you want to run through some of them, you have like the nutrition labels, which I think is a cool one, just to kind of see which applications are going to be accessibility friendly. That usually it's going to be on the bottom of the App Store section for your app. Even the magnifier for the Mac, kind of combining like continuity camera with accessibility. So again, the power of the ecosystem, man. I think Apple's got something cool up their sleeve.
Yeah, the accessibility nutrition labels are especially nice because it's like, I mean, imagine how frustrating it would be to like, all right, there's this app you've been hearing about, you check it out. Maybe you're visually impaired or hearing impaired or whatever the case may be. But prior to this, you kind of just had to download it and see what was available. Like, and if they didn't have, for instance, voiceover support built in, which is table stakes at this point, or reduced motion support or caption support, you wouldn't know until you actually downloaded the app and tried it. Now you can see right at the bottom of the App Store, just like they have for, the privacy nutrition labels, to see the privacy features. Well, they'll have the same thing for accessibility now. So before you download the app, you'll know if it supports voiceover or not, etc.
For sure, which is cool.
Yeah.
And then you even have like so actually, funny enough, I have a video loaded up for personal voice because I wanted to see how it's evolved, because it came out with iOS 17, and I wanted to see, and I remember I did it with iOS 17 beta 1, and obviously at that point, a little iffy, right? Because it was the first version of it, and I wanted to see how far it came, but a little sneak peek, it got a lot better. I got a lot better, and I think that's such a beautiful thing for multiple reasons, right? It could be something as simple as like an artist or singer that is just resting their voice, right? Because they're doing whatever they need to do.
So what is personal voice?
So personal voice is you basically train your iPhone to hear your voice by going through 150 prompts that you read out, and then it does take about a day to kind of do its thing in the background.
It takes some time
because you have to plug it in and leave it locked for it to kind of do what it needs to do, and then it just creates. I don't think it's definitely not using like Apple Intelligence, or like it's using some sort of machine learning that they've had in the past. I don't think it's tapping into like the AI of Apple, but it basically just creates a digital voice of yourself that you can then type out whatever you want to say, and the phone will recite that for you. And then same thing when it comes to on FaceTime calls, you can kind of have it do that. And then it also works for voiceover, and it works for a bunch of different things internally from an accessibility standpoint. So if you are losing your voice, if you know it's leaving and you want to hold on to it some way, or if you just need to rest your voice and you can't talk for a day or a week, you can use your phone to essentially talk for you in your personal voice.
Yeah,
which is
that's
cool.
amazing. And that kind of goes back to like who would have ever thought of such a feature?
Yeah.
It's an emotional thing too, because think about it. You have family members, maybe you're undergoing a procedure where you know you're going to lose your voice, or maybe your voice will be severely affected negatively. Well, in this case, that's going to be a big deal because now your family members, you'll be able to communicate with them. They'll be able to hear you how you naturally sound close enough, right? And that's going to be a huge thing.
Like a kind of sort of robotized version of your voice right now. That's
Yeah.
where I'll leave it at.
So yeah, I mean, it is a robotic voice, but I mean, think about that. Like that would be a big deal to not only you, but your friends and family to be able to kind of hear you sort of naturally, right?
Yeah.
And there's more things coming. You mentioned already the magnifier coming to the Mac. So basically, this would allow you to connect your phone to your Mac via continuity camera and be able to magnetize things on the Mac screen, right?
Yeah. Or magnify, right? Yeah,
Ma-
magnify those.
Not
Yeah.
magnetize.
They're pretty
Maybe
close.
that's
They're pretty
coming. Who
close.
knows?
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Eventually,
don't
it'll
know.
probably be there,
Yeah.
which I think is cool. Basically zoom in, and then that also goes into the accessibility reader, where like you can take a PDF and then just blow it up, but in a way where it's not just like zoomed in. It's actually a natural form of redistributing how big the words are and things like that. So there's a natural flow to it instead of you just like zooming in and then having to like move the screen over little by little. So that's a cool one. But I want to talk about this Braille access and how it works,
Man.
because this is crazy. Because obviously there's no Braille bumps on your iPhone screen, right? So
Right.
like, I wonder how this is going to work. So, I mean, do you know? Do you know?
Well, it's going to use third party hardware, like a Braille reader, which
Okay.
you would basically will simulate or in like real time create I don't want to sound ignorant here, but basically be able to create the bumps, for lack of a better term. I don't know if those have a specific name, but the code, I guess, Braille code, and be able to create that code in real time as you read. So, like if you're putting your fingers over the code, you'll be able to read what's on your phone, and that will be generated in real time. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I don't know if I feel like that's already a feature, and maybe this is just an improvement. It sounds like it turns it into a full feature Braille note taker. So maybe you'll be able to create Braille notes using this. I really don't know much about this, to be honest with you, but I definitely feel like there's already Braille code readers out that you can already attach to your phone and be able to read that way. But I think this is like taking it to the next step, allowing users to create notes.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it does work off of like live captions as well. So like to be able to transcribe conversations in real time. So it's kind of combining both. So what they've been doing in the past, what they have going on now, and then whatever third party piece of hardware you need to get this to run. Which again is awesome. Like I can't imagine in such a digital world, like shout out to the people that go through that day to day, you know, having to go unfortunately blind or maybe poor vision. So it's amazing that they're able to do that. But in that same like live caption is coming to your wrist, which seems like a very natural kind of next step for, because everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people have Apple Watches, and Apple Watch is smart enough to be able to intake information and then be able to transcribe it. So especially if you again, if you're hard of hearing, if you are deaf, it's easy to have that kind of conversation. And then I'm assuming at some point, if there isn't going to be like translation, will be like a thing too. I think the Translate app is already on your Apple Watch.
Yes.
If anything, yeah. So you'll be able to do that too.
Yeah, and there's other things that are coming down the pipe. There's background sounds become more personalized with new EQ settings. The option to stop automatically after a specific time. New actions and automations and shortcuts. And like you mentioned, personal voice gets faster. Looks like vehicle motion cues that you mentioned earlier is coming to the Mac. Yeah, which is really that right there is going to be a big deal, because I mean it's one thing to use your phone while you're while you're in motion, but I will throw up if I try to use a Mac.
I could not.
Like I've tried it. Like there's no way. So I'm looking forward to trying this, because I think that would be pretty helpful.
How would it do it? Because there's no accelerometer in a Mac, is there? Or like a gyroscope? They got to do something. Maybe it works off your iPhone that's in your pocket or your Apple Watch.
Maybe. I never thought about that. Maybe it syncs up together. I don't know. Or maybe there's a gyroscope in the newest Macs and we just don't know.
Oh, yeah. Ooh. the new MacBook Pro 26. We're ready for it. I did try, eye tracking came out with iOS 18. I tried it. There is definitely room for improvement. I think it's a really cool idea. So hopefully with iOS 19, I'll probably run it back another video with iPadOS 19 to see what that looks like. Because in theory, I thought to myself, like, if it's anything like the Vision Pro, it's going to be amazing. But again, it doesn't have nearly the amount of sensors that the Vision Pro does on your iPhone or your iPad. So it will be cool. Yet. So let's see how that ends up happening.
That is, I mean, imagine being able to do that on your Mac. Like, just being able to look and, like, that would be super helpful. Like, I mean, I'm just thinking about how useful it would be to be able to scroll. Right. That's another thing that's coming to Vision OS, actually, Vision OS 3, being able to scroll with your eyes, which is something you couldn't do. Now, I don't think that's an accessibility feature. Yeah, I think that's just a baked-in feature. But that's pretty cool. I would love to be able to have that on the Mac to just be able to be like...
And I also think, like, you can blink to click, so like to replace the tap, but then I wonder how they're gonna, like, what if you're just naturally blinking? How can you differentiate between naturally blinking and blinking for
it's a double blink, man. You got to do it. Definitely check out the post, because
we'll link it below for sure. It's awesome. There's a lot.
There's more than we talked about. And again, don't be afraid to go into that accessibility section and just explore. You can't break anything. Like, you can really make your phone look really crazy, honestly.
Like, I know people use it for, like, to help deter them from using their phone. They turn it into monochrome mode, so they make everything black and white. I've seen a lot of people do that to deter them from seeing notifications in red and, like, all these colors that make you use your phone, right? The digital detox aspect of things.
Yeah, there's also that thing, really briefly, what is it called? It is assistive access. You remember that? So that was a feature.
Yes.
You know those phones that they advertise on late night TV? They're like, what do they call it? What is it for older ones? There's a certain brand of phone. It's like a really, really basic phone that has like huge buttons on it, and it's just like...
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
I don't know the name of it, though.
I forget the name of it, but I know
it's not Cricket, but it's something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they have something like that called Assistive Access that provides a distinctive iOS experience for iPhone. Apps are redesigned to have to be larger and contain core features that can be easily customized. So basically, you can turn your phone into one of those, I won't call it a dumb phone because that's kind of insulting, like, but it's just a simplified iOS interface, pretty much. Very minimal. Very, very minimal. Yeah. So if you have someone who's older, where a smartphone is a little intimidating, and let's be honest, even for us, our smartphones can be a little bit intimidating when you go through the settings. This can be assistive access. Check that out in the accessibility section. Maybe you have an older iPhone and your grandma needs a new phone. Well, you can use that, set up assistive access, and then she has a much simpler interface that just has the core features there for her to be able to use, which makes it a lot more accessible. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, it makes, like, the icons way bigger. It makes it, like, especially for people that don't want a smartphone, they just want it to be an actual phone. It's like the phone icon takes up, like, half the screen, so you can, like, tap in there and start to call people. So, assistive access is cool. And then you also have, the last one I wanted to bring up was guided access, which is fantastic, especially if you have a child.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Man, you're like you're going to get a guided access shirt.
I know. There's a bunch of little things that I started using over the last couple of years with a kid that it's like, wow, like, this is very, very helpful and very useful. For those that don't know, guided access is a mode that you put your phone into, so you can't leave the application that you're in, no matter what you do. You have to go back and, like, put a code back in. Basically, your kid wants to play a game or scroll something, you put it into guided access mode, and they can't leave that application no matter what they try to do. And then you get it back, you put your code in, and you're good to go. So, and I think you triple tap the lock button to bring it up.
Yeah.
So like for those of you guys who want to try it.
Spoken like a true dad.
For sure.
definitely check out, like I said, check that out. And again, props to Apple, their accessibility team. There's a lot of staffers, a lot of engineers that work on the accessibility team that have been instrumental in this over the years. So shout out to you guys. Keep up the good work. And yeah, we'll catch you in the next episode. Be sure to subscribe to 9 to 5 Mac on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Also, new wallpapers dropping on the 1st. So check back on Sunday. Sunday, right? Yeah, because we'll have new wallpapers for YouTube membership subscribers.
And we're, I guess depending on when this goes up, we're like a week or 10 days away from WWDC, which is insane.
Yeah.
I'm ready for it.
We'll be back. We'll probably have like a special, like brief episode right after the keynote, just to recap everything. And then we'll be back with more videos.
Let's do it. Thanks, everybody.
See you guys later.
Peace.